8:29 right here on Breakfast Television. Well, as of January 1st in France, they have moved to an opt-out system when it comes to organ donation. Right here in Quebec, we have an opt-in system, signing a little sticker you put on the back of your Medicare card and a whole other things you've got to do to donate an organ. Well, we've assembled an expert panel here to talk about this. First off, Dr. Jean Tchervenkov is a transplant surgeon, also professor of surgery at the MUHC. Thanks for joining us, Jean.
Thank you.
Stephen Evans was diagnosed with end-stage renal failure in July 2013, and your friend Andy stepped up to the plate, donated a kidney to you back in 2014. You also created the sign of a hero with Andy to get people to sign their donor cards. Thank you for joining us. Our own Domenic Fazioli, a face you recognize here, he was part of a program to donate his kidney back in 2012 so that his father could in turn receive a transplant. Another donor on this panel. And Sylvie Charbonneau is the president of the Quebec division of the Kidney Foundation of Quebec, and you donated your kidney to your son Benoit in 2012.
Right.
Guys, I want to start off with this. I've signed my card. I just showed it. It's in my pocket here. I've signed my card.
Thank you. Good for you. Thank you.
You know, and when I go, I want my organs to be given to other people. I know it can benefit a lot of people. But while I'm alive, I'm a bit partial to my organs. You two have given this incredible gift of life. I want to start with you, Sylvie, and that decision. Obviously, your son needed an organ. Tell me about that decision, and it must have been very easy, but still, it's something a lot of people can't grasp.
It was probably a 10-second decision.
Yeah.
When Benoit told us that he was sick, that he had a kidney disease, I once heard on the radio that you can give kidneys while you're still alive, and I thought, why not? I'm healthy, he needs me, I'm his mom. If I can do that for him, why not? And it was a very easy decision.
Dom, you also gave a kidney. It in turn saved your dad's life.
Yeah.
This is something, you know, obviously you've got this blood bond, both of you do, but tell me about your decision.
It was more complicated in my case because I wasn't blood compatible with my dad, so it wasn't a direct donation. Mm-hmm. Nevertheless, I found out about this kidney exchange program, and thank God I found out about it just in time. Basically, I made a trade with a family in Vancouver. They traveled from Vancouver to Montreal, and we made the swap. It's more complicated than that. It was a process that took maybe 15 months, a year and a half to put together, but it's incredible.
Stephen, your story is incredible because you're a recipient, right, and a friend
yes.
gave. I mean, can there be a bigger gift, really? Can there be?
Well, not really. I mean, for a friend to step up and give you a kidney, it's quite amazing. And I was very lucky. He went through the whole process. He never thought about it twice. He's an incredibly giving individual.
Dr. Tchervenkov, I want to bring you in on this, and I want to talk to you about misconceptions. There are people at home that are watching this, they maybe haven't signed, they're iffy on it, they don't believe in it. What are some misconceptions you hear that you want the message to get out?
So I want to get the message out. First of all, I want to take a moment to thank all these people who have been great, generous donors, be it to their family or to friends or even in the final moments of their lives. This is an incredibly generous act to do. So some of the misconceptions is that there is an age limit for organ donation. There isn't. In fact, we have pushed the envelope in the last 20 years, and we commonly take organs from older people as well as younger people. The misconception is that you just need to sign a document or there's a law out there that's going to guarantee that you become a donor. That is a misconception. You need to talk about it. You need to let your family know. And you also have to let the health professionals know as well. And the health professionals need to be implicated in this act. And the third misconception is that we, the transplant surgeons, do the asking. No, we don't. We rely on our colleagues across the medical profession, mostly the intensive care unit colleagues, and nurses and other health allied professionals. They have to be implicated as well and involved. And in doing that, I think we can increase the donor organ rate substantially. And countries that have done that have actually done very well. Spain is an example. They have a legislation of opting out, but they did not rely on that alone. They really got involved at the local level. Every hospital has an implicated intensivist, what we call a donor coordinator, that really looks out for patients who may and are actually potentially organ donors.
I want to ask the entire panel now, what do you do to convince someone? Sylvie, what's your go-to? When you meet someone who maybe is hesitant, how do you convince them to make that decision?
I try to do it very simply. I talk about our story, how my son's life was impacted by his disease, how he had, he was 30 years old. So I think talking about misconception, I try to show that it's not just a disease that is for older people, but younger people can have those diseases as well. And I try to show how good you can do to people who are sick today, why not? And I try also to understand what their fears are, so that we can work on their fears.
Stephen, and with your work with Andy, what are the fears that you hear? What are some of those fears, and how do you convince someone?
I actually I flip it the other way. So first of all, the vast majority, 80-90% of people are actually for organ donation. It's just that they're never sure about how to make sure their wishes are put forward. So what do they do? How do they make sure that they do that? And a lot of the time it's very simple to talk to them. A lot of the people who, if you talk about their fears, the way I do it is I talk to them and say, imagine if it was your sister, your brother, your mother, wouldn't you want as many people out there as possible to have you, be on the register? So, that's the way that we talk about it. There's a lot of people, I never try and convince people if they've got different religious beliefs or anything like that. You've got to let people have their beliefs and live by their beliefs. But the vast majority of people really do want to step up and help.
And Dom, quickly before we go to break, have you become sort of an advocate in your personal life with family and that kind of stuff since this?
Absolutely. I think it takes 10 seconds for me to explain my story, and they realize it's important. I mean, how can you say no to a family member? And you know what? It sounds like an easy decision, because when you go, why not?
When we come back on Breakfast Television, we're going to talk about some serious issues like changing the law, requiring this. Should we do it here in Quebec? That's ahead right here on Breakfast Television.
My organs are still good and there's somebody that needs them. I don't need them anymore. I don't see why somebody else shouldn't get them.
There is so much needed for that, and too bad people don't realize that they can save life.
I'm a grandmother, and if I can help anybody, why not? I mean, once you're gone, right?
I would donate, but I'm not going to take the time to fill out the form to donate, if that makes sense. But if I was already on the list, I'm not going to go through the hassle to take me off the list.
We are back on our panel talking about organ donations. I'll get a little personal here. I've been made very clear to my friends and family, when I go, I'd like all my organs to be donated. My mother probably has other ideas. She is someone that believes that when you get to the pearly gates, you don't have your corneas, they're not going to let you in. So my question for you, and we sort of have walked around it a bit, when it comes to strong religious beliefs, strong personal beliefs, what is the best way of making sure a family respects your decision? Because if they don't, your organs don't get donated in this province.
That's correct.
So what's the best way to get your family to respect those wishes?
I was talking to Sylvie about this, and Sylvie's got a lot more knowledge of this, and Dr. Tchervenkov, than I have, but really it's just communication and talking to your family. Very, very simple. Tell your family your wishes, talk about it before people don't want to talk about their mortality. It's a tough subject. Yeah. So how does it come up and where do you talk about it? But as you say with your mum, you've got to talk to her and just tell her about it. I mean, Sylvie, what have you found?
Well, sometimes I tell people, it's very important to talk to your family, and it's not because you're going to talk about it and sign your card that you're going to die right now. It's not. And a lot of people do not realize that your family could take a different decision than yours when the time comes. So it's very, very important to get involved with your family, and I say, realize that the burden that you put on your family when they're asked to take that decision when they're grieving. So why not talk about this before, when there's not that much emotion into place?
Based on what all of you know, should we change the law here in Quebec? Should we follow the lead of some European nations and make that decision where we become an opt-out rather than an opt-in society?
Absolutely. I think it's a given. I think it's an easy decision. I don't know if there's a political will anywhere to bring this in. It's not on the radar. It's not on Mr. Trudeau's radar, Mr. Couillard's radar. I don't know if this will ever happen in my lifetime.
Dr. Tchervenkov, you're there. I mean, you did Stephen's surgery.
Right.
So you were the transplant. You're there on those front lines.
Right.
I mean, I suspect maybe your perspective is maybe not different, but a little more forceful.
Well, in Stephen's case, it was a friend, and so it's a living donation. That's a bit different than the other way to get organs. But I just want to say something here and clarify something. The law is great, but I think if you do not discuss your wishes with your family and as many people as possible, so that a lot of people know what your wishes are, it's good to have a law, but sometimes the law may have a perverse effect and may have a negative effect on organ donation. We have to be very careful. I think in Spain, where the law has been there since 1979, did not achieve great donor rates until they had other things put in place, which is the coordinators in the hospital identifying donors, speaking with the family. They don't take an immediate no for, they work with the family, sometimes several hours, to try and tell them the benefits of organ donation. And that's where we need to probably focus more and invest a lot of our money into that aspect of organ donation.
How great is the need right now? How many people are we losing today because we don't have enough organs for transplants?
I don't know how many people we're losing, but I know that we have almost 1,000 people in Quebec waiting for an organ. And out of that number, about 75 to 80% of these people are waiting for a kidney, which is an organ that you can give while you're living.
That's right.
So there is a solution there. If we bring awareness to the population and we could increase the number of living donors, this is part of the solution, and it's easier to be done than changing the law.
And that's a good point. And by the way, I must bring in another misconception I failed to tell you about. And that is, most people think they need to be related to the person who needs a kidney. And they don't. Most people think they need to be a match. They don't. As we have here on the panel examples of, sharing organs across Canada. That's a great program that was started about 10 years ago, and it's resulted in over 400 transplants that wouldn't have happened otherwise.
Yeah.
And just to add to that, we had a few cases in Quebec where people came to a hospital and just said, I want to give a kidney.
That's right.
So we call that altruist donation.
Right.
They were not related, they didn't know anybody, they wanted to give a kidney.
And by the way, that starts what we call a chain reaction.
Yeah.
Because when they give to the shared program, that allows another 5 or 6 people to receive organs that wouldn't have happened before.
Well, we are out of time, but this has been enlightening to know that it's not just the signature that counts. You got to talk to your family. That's the current state of affairs in Quebec. Very important for people here to know. For those of you on the panel who have given an organ, thank you. People on the receiving end, the work you do every day, thank you so much. And we've got a comment that we received during this panel on our via email, actually. This comes from Marianne. Watching your segment on automatic organ donation, thank you. I just received my second kidney transplant from my boyfriend through the paired exchange program. Dr. Tchervenkov did my transplant, my first transplant 21 years ago when I was 17 years old, donated by my mom. They've come such a long way, and it's amazing to see and be living proof of the progress that's been made. Thank you, BT, for the segment and helping raise awareness. You guys are on. Well, thank you so much for that comment.
To you.
Great panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Talk to your families, sign your cards, and we'll be back with more right here on Breakfast Television.